Hey guys, welcome back to the Liquid Lore YouTube channel. Today we're going to be covering the Mexican national cocktail, the Paloma. And this one has a very crazy, wacky, mysterious history to it. I think you're going to find it really interesting, so we'll go ahead and hop into it. But a lot of the information in this video comes from a website called Academics. I came across it, and it's been invaluable in the research for this cocktail. But then also I put together a few other articles and books as well, so the information will be spread throughout the video, but I did want to go ahead and preface the video with that. So let's go ahead and hop into it. So for years, the Wikipedia article for the Paloma stated that it came from a pamphlet called Cocktails of the Rio Grande, and that the drink was made by someone by the name of Evan Harrison. This information got picked up by bloggers and other people on the internet and began to spread like wildfire. The issue is that no one, including myself a few years ago whenever I was looking into it, could find a reference for the pamphlet Popular Cocktails of the Rio Grande. And this is where I'm going to cite the Academics website. There is a great conversation between Academics writer and YouTuber. I don't remember his name, but he runs the channel Distinguished Spirits. Go ahead and check that out. Great source of information. But they have a conversation back and forth via email, and it's a fantastic resource. So we're going to go through it right now. So Distinguished Spirits goes on to say that the pamphlet Popular Cocktails of the Rio Grande is not registered with any copyright office or anything like that, and nobody by the name of Evan Harrison has any registered works. So one of two things happened. Either it doesn't exist or it was self-published. But if it was self-published, that would really knock the authenticity of the whole thing, and would it really be reliable at that point anyway? So that's up for debate. More than likely it didn't exist, but we'll get into the details of that right now. So the references to the pamphlet only begin as far back as when it first appeared on Wikipedia, which is a red flag to begin with. And the first reference to the pamphlet was February 17th, 2013, but it first appeared on Wikipedia February 16th, 2012. It is also worth noting that this pamphlet is not cited in the resource section of Wikipedia at all, so there's really no link to leapfrog to something else with more information to it. It's even more interesting, and the biggest red flag, that this entry to Wikipedia was made at about 2 in the morning. The IP address puts it somewhere outside of Cambridge, Massachusetts, about 2 hours right outside. So that's a pretty big red flag as well. There would then end up being about 12 edits to the Wikipedia page between November 9th, 2013 and November 30th, 2013. And all of them came from the IP address in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And they kept getting more extreme and extreme, really non-believable. And I'll go ahead and read what it eventually became as the entry. And it's kind of outlandish, but you can go ahead and decide on it. So I'll read it straight up. It says, the first published recipe for the Paloma is attributed to Evan Harrison in a 1953 pamphlet entitled Popular Cocktails of the Rio Grande. But it was thought to be created by a rival tavern manager, Manuel Gonzalez, who named it for his true love. Manuel had courted her for many years, but when Evan published the drink in his pamphlet, Manuel, in a fit of jealous rage, arrived to her small pueblo of La Guadalupe del Tortugas and shot both her and himself in front of her family at her 15th birthday party. Legend has it that his last words were with lemon, not with grapefruit. Which is a crazy story because it means a rival tavern manager started courting this girl when she was like 11. And then in order to kill her for her 15th birthday 4 years later. But, I mean, that was 1950s Mexico, so who really knows if it's true or not? That's a joke. It's definitely not true. I mean, it just makes no sense. There's no evidence for it. There's no historical facts you can connect the dots to. Honestly, it's just spam. I think it was probably just a group of dudes, 2 in the morning, drunk, either Evan Harrison himself or his buddies, just making a joke out the whole thing, and then they kind of ran away with it. But after some digging, there actually is a bartender named Evan Harrison that works in the Cambridge, Massachusetts area. He owns part of a bar there, and he makes light of this whole Paloma situation on his About page. And it reads, Evan Harrison, owner, bar manager. He's a bartender from Texas, with dual degree in feminist studies in a language he doesn't speak, who also is credited with the creation of the Paloma 50 years before his birth. So, I mean, I think he probably had something to do with it. And he's just joking and taking the notoriety. But I guess we'll never know for sure unless he says something. But like I mentioned, what most likely happened is Evan or his buddies just hanging out one night thought it would have been funny to credit the cocktail to him, so they did. And then bloggers and internet historians didn't fact check this, and they just pulled it from the Wikipedia page and spread it all over the internet. And there's still articles floating around the internet with this misinformation as the main history behind the Paloma. So it is very easy to get confused if you do your own research. Now, more so than a few years ago, there are a lot more articles citing that this mistake happened on Wikipedia. But if you do dig and you do get into it, you can still find articles that claim Evan Harrison was the creator of the Paloma. There's also one more popular theory about the creation of the Paloma, and that would credit Don Javier of Tequila, Mexico. He had a bar named La Capilla, and he's credited, or there's a rumor that he created the Paloma. But Don himself, via Jim Meehan's bartending book, has said that he did not create the Paloma. So at the very least, he's a better man than Evan Harrison. So take that for what it's worth. Okay, so let's talk about how you actually make a Paloma, and then we'll get into a little bit of the ingredients that I want to talk about. So making a Paloma is a highball glass, so a tall glass. Fill it up with ice, and then you can salt the rim. That's optional, or you can add other things to the rim if you want. But 2 ounces of tequila straight in, half an ounce of lime juice, freshly squeezed if you can, and then you're going to top it with sparkling grapefruit juice, grapefruit soda, and then give it a quick stir, and that's your Paloma. So super easy to make. I mean, it's really refreshing, especially in those hot summer months. And then what I really want to talk about is the grapefruit soda. This kind of gives us a hint on when the Paloma maybe was created. So the first grapefruit soda was created in 1938 in Arizona. It's called Squirt. And Squirt ended up getting distributed to Mexico sometime in 1955. But way prior to that, Mexicans were mixing tequila with really any soda or really anything just to cut the tequila taste. So more than likely what happened is Squirt was introduced to Mexico in 1955. Mexicans immediately started mixing tequila with it, and then thus the Paloma was born, or the first iteration of the Paloma was born. There's no documented evidence of this. So the earliest mention of the Paloma that David Wondrich has come across in his research is in 2000. It's a virgin Paloma by this book called Cowboy Cocktails. That's the earliest reference. Many cocktail historians are still on the hunt for an earlier reference that would put the Paloma in Mexico around the 1950s, when it's believed to have been there once Squirt was introduced to the market. But there is no definitive evidence yet. I'm sure some will turn up eventually. It always does. But I think the Paloma has a really strong case for being a 1950s cocktail mixed with Squirt initially. So let's just recap quickly. There's a lot of misinformation floating around about the history of the Paloma due to the incorrect citing on the Wikipedia page that either Evan Harrison or his buddies created, saying he made the Paloma, and it was referenced in the pamphlet, The Popular Cocktails of the Rio Grande. Bloggers picked that up, spread it around, spread the false stories around. But then Distinguished Spirits YouTube channel and the Academics started digging. They got to the bottom of it and really found out that it was probably just his friends that did this, and there's no actual evidence for this. But with the introduction of Squirt in 1955 to Mexico, and Mexicans already mixing tequila with other sodas, you can just about imagine that they mixed Squirt with tequila, and thus the first iteration of the Paloma was born. And then you had the 1968 Olympics, which was held in Mexico. That gave rise to the popularity of tequila, especially in the 70s and 80s. It was still seen as more of a party drink, but margaritas really took off during this time. And although margaritas are still the more popular cocktail in the States, the Paloma is the more popular cocktail in Mexico, thus making it the national cocktail of Mexico. And then when the early 2000s came along and the cocktail revolution started, people started creating the Paloma more often with fresh grape juice, some soda, but traditionally it is made with grapefruit soda, not fresh grapefruit juice. Feel free to experiment with it, obviously. Whatever you want, whatever fits your palate. You're making a cocktail at home. Who cares? If you like it, just drink it. But that's really the rundown on the Paloma. It's wacky history, I know. It's actually pretty interesting, though, so I hope you found it interesting. Let me know if you've ever had a Paloma, what your favorite variations are, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Enjoy some cocktails for me. Cheers.